Look at the terrain of Maharashtra. We are dealing with sheer vertical drops, solid rock faces plunging down 1,500 feet, surrounded by deep, unforgiving valleys. Resting on one of these staggering peaks is a sprawling capital city, suspended in the clouds. The geography creates an immediate paradox. A sheer cliff makes it impossible for an invading army to march up and attack, but it also makes bringing up the materials to build a city a massive logistical challenge. Try to imagine the friction of dragging thousands of tons of raw stone up a near vertical dirt track. And even if you succeed, you still face a second problem: surviving a prolonged siege on a rock that has no natural rivers. The architect tasked with solving this was Hiroji Indulkar. He knew a standard fortress would eventually fall to thirst, so he set out to build a structure that functioned as a self-sustaining machine. Indulkar's design was intended to be structurally invincible against any known army of the 17th century. Indulkar's first major problem was the stone. The verticality meant hauling bricks from the valley was impossible, so he ordered his crews to quarry the building material directly from the mountain peak. This massive excavation generated the stone they needed, but left the plateau with deep, cavernous craters. Instead of filling those holes, he transformed them. He engineered those empty craters into vast water reservoirs to solve the siege survival problem. Solving the material deficit addressed the resource vulnerability, ensuring inhabitants would never run out of water. This engineering choice transformed a barren rock into a habitable fortress that could sustain itself indefinitely. But the surface reservoirs were only the beginning. The internal urban planning of Raigad operated with a level of sophistication rarely seen in this era. This network was designed to capture rainwater and move it through interconnected subterranean channels, distributing a steady supply throughout the entire city. Because those channels ran directly beneath the foundations of the buildings, the flowing water pulled heat away from the living spaces, providing a form of passive cooling against the Indian sun. Environmental survival was only half the goal. The architecture also contained hidden security strategies. Look at the primary entry pathways. The walls wind in sharp blind curves. These paths were designed to disorient incoming troops and force them into narrow choke points where they could be easily defended. At its operational peak, Raigad was a sealed environment. An attacking army could not starve the inhabitants, cut off their water, or survive a frontal assault. By every military standard of the time, the fortress was an unbreakable system. Within this logical, defensive perfection, a single oversight remained. Defensive architecture is built to stop organized armies, meaning it often fails to account for the movements of a single individual. Historical accounts tell the story of Hirkani, an ordinary woman who was trapped inside the fortress after the massive gates were locked for the night. She had an infant child waiting for her in a village in the valley, and she could not wait until morning for the gates to reopen. Searching the perimeter in the dark, she found a narrow, sloping green ridge that dropped sharply down the cliff face. It was completely unguarded. The engineers had left this area unfortified because they believed the descent was physically impossible for a human to survive. Her successful descent forced the architects to realize that while they could master gravity and withstand armies, they had not accounted for the determination of a mother trying to reach her child.